Charles. We met a few years back. Charles began experiencing homelessness when he lost his job due to some medical issues. A cousin in Baltimore offered him a temporary home. Oh, I got it now. Offered him a temporary home, but without any way of supporting himself. He eventually ended up on the street, and actually the street was a park bench. He lived on this park bench for months, during the spring and the summer. And while there, a social worker professor would walk her dog every day, right past Charles's bench. You know how things are when you see someone every single day. You eventually get to know each other. And one day the professor asked Charles if he was hungry, and a friendship between them began to grow. The weather was going to turn colder, and the professor was very concerned about what he was going to do over the winter. And Charles told her that he wanted to get back to Pennsylvania, back to what he considered his home. The professor, not wanting to see him out in the cold during the winter months, bought him a bus ticket, and Charles went to the mission in Harrisburg. While there, he met an outreach worker for the Lebanon Veterans Administration, who referred him to the TLC's Victory House. When I met Charles as his case manager, I met a man who resembled someone who looked like he'd been on the street a very long time. He was very thin, he had a long bushy beard and long hair and worn clothing, but he was clean. And Charles didn't make much eye contact at first. And after meeting with him a few times, I realized he really did want to get a job, but he would need a special path, taking his medical limitations into account. Starting with a haircut and a beard trim, and some what I would call firm encouragement, Charles began a volunteer job at a local amusement park. And although he was hesitant to go at first, through that experience, his confidence grew. Being needed is a great self-esteem builder. We began tackling the lack of income through working with Mid-Penn Legal Services, the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, and working with the Veterans Administration for housing assistance. The first day Charles smiled, I knew we were on our way. After years of surviving day to day and hearing about the struggles he had faced, the gentleness in his heart, and after so many disappointments, a day came when Charles finally believed something good was going to happen. And hope is a lovely thing to see born. No one gets it done alone. It's a team effort. It was pulling together of multiple resources and programs to bring Charles from the street into his new home. One of those people was Marge Maurer from the Tabor Shelter to Independent Living program. I knew I was handing him over to a special and dedicated case manager who would walk with Charles a little longer as he graduated from Veterans Victory House.
Hey everyone. In May of 2011, as Sheila said, Charles was referred by the Veterans Victory House to the STILL program. STILL, which stands for Shelter to Independent Living, is a program of Tabor which seeks to assist people in Lancaster County's emergency shelters and transitional facilities bridge the gap from homelessness to permanent sustainable housing. There is a STILL office located on site at TLC from which I work to help people obtain affordable rental housing and then to provide them with supportive services and ongoing budget counseling for up to the first year of their lease. Charles came to STILL with a HUD-VASH voucher for which he was eligible based on his 6 years of Army service. This housing program is administered by the Veterans Administration and the local housing authorities for veterans who serve honorably. The voucher subsidizes housing costs, allowing veterans with lower incomes or disabilities to obtain permanent housing in their community. Charles expressed two goals at the beginning of his time with Tabor's Still program: to get permanently housed, preferably at the historic Hamilton Suites in downtown Lancaster, and to get a part-time job and become non-reliant on public assistance for his income. In June 2011, we spoke to Bob Kreider, the property manager at historic Hamilton Suites, who said there would be a unit available in August, and he would consider Charles for tenancy. The following month, Charles was officially approved for his own apartment and signed his lease on July 28th. He obtained permanent housing and took occupancy in August of 2011, nearly 15 months ago. With his first goal accomplished, we tackled the monumental task of finding suitable employment for him. We turned to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, to where Sheila had already started the referral process. He began working with a counselor there who dealt specifically with veterans, who got him enrolled in the job readiness class at CareerLink, which he attended and completed in January of 2012. He then started working with a job coach through UDS, which is United Disability Services. She contacted various places of employment on Charles' behalf to help him find a job placement. In the meantime, in July, Charles received a letter announcing that the General Assistance Program was being eliminated by the state of Pennsylvania, and he was going to lose the income that he had. This was a little bit panic-inducing for Charles, who worried that it would affect his newly obtained housing. But just a few weeks later, his UDS job counselor took him to McCombs Electrical Supply Company on North Marshall Street, where he found that he was well suited for the light-duty warehouse work they had available to him. On July 23rd of this year, Charles became a permanent employee at McCombs and currently works about 22 hours there each week. The following month, the GA program was terminated in PA, but Charles had already secured his own income through part-time employment, and his second goal was now accomplished. His story shows the great power of community collaboration that TLC worked so hard to bring about in order to help the past and present participants achieve the goals they set for themselves. And now it is my very great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Charles and the poem that he wrote, which he would like to read to you now.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. First of all, I want to say that me standing up here reading this poem is a direct result in the TLC program, and one of the things that changed in my life. They're calling this a poem. These are just some words that came to me over a period of time while I was at TLC, and I guess a year later it turned into a poem. But anyway, I ended up giving it a title. It's called The Lancaster Connection, and it reads, I came to Lancaster because someone else cared. When I got here, God gave me a reason to share. You see, my life's been crazy, time and time again. If I would only listen to the angels that he sent. Just walking around, I felt feeling in my mind. When turning the corner, wow, there was an old mentor of mine. God again, in his own powerful way, was saying, hey you, listen to what I say. So I started listening to those around me and doing what they say, because I know he uses people in his own special way. As for the angels he sends to me each day, they have been my light and they have shown me the way. Greyhound will tell you to leave the driving to us, but what I came to believe is that they're not in charge of the bus. When we get to heaven, there'll be no turning back, because God uplifts the humble and those who are giving back. And I'd just like to say thanks and peace to you too, my friends, and all you said and done, for your reward will be waiting. All you need to do is come. You made a friend, indeed. You know, the last time I was up to Lebanon VA, I seen a poster up there, and the poster read that it takes the whole community to heal a veteran's wounds. And I'd just like to say thanks to TLC, and I will always be grateful and honored that TLC was a part of that process for me. Thank you again, TLC.